Lagos. My name is Victor Pepple. Shopper Martins is here as well. Good morning.
All right, I was wondering what was going on. Yes, yes, yes. Good morning and welcome to the show. It is Smooth Breakfast, freshly pressed for the next half hour for a Feel Good Friday. Joining Pepple and myself, Shopper Martins, in the studio, we have got Waji Jibuno and Fadel. Good morning and good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Waje.
Good morning, Fidel. Shopware was happening, and it's very nice to meet you, Victor.
Pepple, yes.
Victor Pepple,
Yes.
fantastic. And as always, good morning, Lagos.
Oh, there he is. We missed that voice. Ah, it's back. Okay, good. Anyway, and Lagos, Nigeria world, we have you too on youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Join us, watch us live, and leave your comments up on that live stream. You can also send WhatsApp messages in to 0809 440 981 and go over to Twitter. I always say this, join the conversation up on Twitter, and I love it when you do. Hashtag freshly pressed 981 and just tag us in as well. We are at smooth 981 FM, and you can find our analysts on Twitter as well if you want to include the whole family at the corporate MC, corporate spelled with a K, that's for Waji, and at Izotene, that is for Fidel. Okay, gents, let's get straight into the story. Starting off, we've got this one in from the Punch newspaper. 2023 INEC budgets 239 billion naira for poll materials and presidential runoff, and that's to be spent on 10 critical items, including ballot papers, operational vehicles, ballot boxes, allowances of ad hoc workers, and printing of result sheets, logistics, and procurement of accreditation devices. Also included is 27.1 billion naira set aside by the commission for possible runoff elections, including the one for the presidential poll. Um, so good to that we have all of this planning ahead. My question is, are we also planning for security and securing of the voters and polling units, because those have gone up from 119,973 polling units last year to a projected 176,846 next year, and we have projection of 100 million voters by next year, up from 84 million registered voters in the last elections. Fidel, I come to you for this.
I mean, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu has really, put out a lot of, details with respect to the plans that INEC has for 2023 elections.
Mm.
My concern in all this, I mean, I like the comparative analysis between 2019 and, 2023. He's saying, okay, so they're going to spend about $5.33 because he puts that figure in dollars. I wonder why it's in dollars, but that's story for another day. But he puts that in figures, and then in 2019 we were spending $7.38 on a voter. But this is where I'm concerned. He says no amount of insecurity will stop the elections in 2023. I'm wondering, does he have information that we don't have? Maybe him and the
But hold on, even from the information that we do have, we see insecurity everywhere.
everywhere. So
Is
so
that not what he could be talking about already?
I'm concerned. How does he? I mean, with all these monies, right? It's still our security operatives of today, the Nigerian Army, the police force, the Nigerian Air Force, that is going to ensure that there is security, and then INEC and every other, non-governmental organizations are just going to be independent observers, right? So how exactly does the professor expect to ensure security? I mean, we see the wards have gone up. We see the polling units have gone up, like you said, from 119,000 approximately to 176,000 approximately. So if we have these number of polling units, I mean, in the northeast with all what's going on, in the southeast with all these groups and factions or and IPOB and whatnot, I'm concerned that his statement might not.
Fidel, I kind of have a problem. You see that across Nigeria, every now and again we hear that, oh, they burnt electoral materials in Imo State, in Anambra, in different places. We have to spend money to replace these, sensitive materials. Again, we hear of runoffs. We hear about, off cycle elections, and all of this cost money. Spending about 239 billion naira of taxpayers' money for our elections is just quite so much, I tell you.
Look. Victor, I mean, just like every other thing in Nigeria, prices go up and never comes down, right? I don't even want to go into the propriety of that. We know I mean, it's saying 189 billion to 305 billion, right? I'm saying let us assume without conceding that the professor has his numbers right. Let's assume that he can actually deliver um, free and fair elections with this money. I'm saying, can he categorically state that there will be security, or there is promised security for every single voter when this election comes? I'm not even going to speak to whether the money the money is too much, the figures are bloated. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but in Nigeria now, when we see this budget, I mean, it's a given that there's going to be some,
It's all right.
Some measure of bloat in there.
It's all right.
Some measure of something.
more than a measure.
A little some, yeah. But
Let's-
at the end of the day, what we're looking forward to and what we even want to see is, well, okay, apart from free and fair elections, sounds a little bit like world peace, but okay, yes, is also safe elections. People
Indeed,
being able
indeed.
to go out and vote safely.
So on that note, I think I'd actually have to put it out again. I mean, we can never say this too much. Please go out and register for your PVC.
Get your
Make
PVC.
sure your PVC is in order. Get your PVC, and please, if you can, at with caution, come out to vote.
Okay, Fred from Festac saying, I think the INEC professor is just saying that they are going to doggedly have this election, whatever it takes. He also says, I think we should join hands with INEC in this election so that we can have a change in government. Okay.
Well, let's move on from the high cost in our budget for elections to the Guardian newspaper now. Insecurity. Obasanjo orders insist on state police as Buhari task service chiefs. Let's look at the story. After a 4-hour National Security Council meeting yesterday, the president once again issued fresh directives to security agencies to rescue all those in captivity across the country and advance the acquisition of intelligence. Obasanjo is insisting on state police. Is that the solution to the problems of insecurity in Nigeria, Wajib?
Um, okay, so I think the two parts of the story. One is the report coming from the National Security Advisor on how the president is unhappy with the state of security and how it makes him a very sad man that Nigerians are dying on a daily basis, and how, in as much as he is the person in charge of security, the blame doesn't necessarily sit on him entirely. That the people who are meant to actually conduct the operations of security as well need to also carry some blame. That's one part of the story. The second part of the story is what you're alluding to with regards to Obasanjo's statement about state police. Now, let me tackle the latter before I come to the former. Now, the latter on Obasanjo being, quite vociferous with his statements about state police is actually quite interesting for a former military head of state and a former two-term, Democrat.
About chemicals, toxic chemicals that are polluting the waters where people eat, drink, and the source of people's livelihood. And I don't know. I feel like it's something that should be priority, like education, like security. It's something that should be priority to this government. And then when you say that after, or when it's almost 7 years, and then you say that all you want to do is, I mean, I'll just take a quote from what the minister said. He said, however, the process that we can do at the moment is procurement. It's the procurement that we can do at the moment to ensure that there is immediate irrigation water projects, to ensure that there is clean water provided for the people. I'm like, sir, what then has been going on? I feel like, I mean, the story doesn't really talk about it, and the minister is saying this in Abuja, not in the areas affected. I want to know how many times this minister has been there. I want to know what work has been done. Then that this is where you are, and if this is where you are, what was the reason, or what was the setback that stalled your projects? That between these years this government has been in power, this government wasn't able to ensure that at least there is clean water for these people to use. There is clean water in the rivers
By the way,
where they are
six
fishing.
billion naira was put out for the provision of clean potable water in certain Ogoni communities. So if we're saying now that we still don't have clean water, where did that money go? Then there's also the other issue that I would like to touch on. Yes, okay, if we even take away the take away the fact of problems with the awarding of contracts, money disappearing, nothing being done. There's also the issue of just the extent of degradation that's gone on in the environment. Because when even after the project was started, the UN came out and said that this will probably prove to be the world's most wide-ranging, long-term, extensive cleanup of oil, which actually goes to um, the question of just where's the oversight when it comes to these communities and businesses that conduct their projects in these communities, so that we don't have to spend all of this money, all of this time, and all of these people's lives fixing what should not have been broken in the first place.
I mean, sometimes sometimes when you hear some of these orders, it sounds unreasonable when they say, "Oh, these oil companies must locate or must have their headquarters in areas where they operate." I mean, the Shells, the Mobiles. I mean, they'll cry for the insecurity and all that of their staff and personnel and all that. But when you look at all these things, these stakeholders in quote are detached. I mean, we have all the oil companies in between from Chevron down to Victoria Island, and I'm saying Chevron as an area, not the company, right? So from
Gotcha.
Chevron down to Victoria Island, all these oil companies are there, right? And then you see that they're detached. All they have to do is just send out some monies or put out some monies for whatever projects they want to call it, and then they let it go. They make peace. I mean, it's not what they would do in their country. It's not what they would do in their country. It's not what they would accept. But I mean,
Because
it's the easier option
where
for
did
them.
the insecurity come from?
I mean, it's something that we saw from the Ken Saro-Wiwa, pushing or demanding for peace, demanding for the fair treatment of the people of the Niger Delta.
And being met with violence.
I mean, he was brutally executed, right? And then from that we saw it transform to a monster. The movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta men and all other factions and groups and gangs in this area. And then sometimes you wonder why these people or these factions are acting like monsters. It is this government, it is this administration, and every other business that is doing, every other organization that is doing business there, that is callous and also liable for whatever is going on in that region.
All right, we've got to take your messages now. Thank you for that, Fidel.
Yeah.
Going over to WhatsApp, do remember you can also be on YouTube and leave a message, and Twitter and leave a message. Taya from Agile on WhatsApp says, on the Ogoni issue, this government is packaging problems for the next administration. When they assumed office, they visited the site, and the cost for the cleanup was estimated, but we are here again just like before.
And Nero sends a message as well, says, what's really going on in Ogoni? Could it be some people are using it as a campaign to make money? How about the money awarded to the Ogoni people? Kunle Nikotun, I think with the high level of insecurity, we need to set policing to solve most of this insecurity in the country in order to dig deep into the forces behind it. However, I support the speaker that we need sincere and focused leadership for maximum achievement.
Going back to our first story, Joseph Olofinkoa up on YouTube says, with respect to the budget for elections, I think we budget for incompetence, and that is sad. While Samuel from Lekki says, it would be unfair to ask what Obasanjo did regarding state police during his time. The truth is, he managed security and it was never like this then. Those calling for state police, it's due to the situation that we find ourselves in, where the government seems to allow certain people to get away with crimes, and those expected to prosecute them are also from his side of the country. All right, let's take another story now.
All right, let's quickly head over to the Guardian newspaper. Government to end 200 billion naira yearly electricity subsidy in December. ASU president, now looking at the story now, ASU president Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke has accused the federal government looking to end tariff shortfall averaging 200 billion naira every year in the power sector by the end of this year. Now, between 2015 and 2020, the shortfall reportedly stood at about 2.4 trillion naira, averaging 200 billion naira yearly, and the shortfall accrued from suppressed charges for electricity consumption.
Mhm. So another subsidy conversation, and I think it goes beyond just the electrical subsidy, but it also goes into fuel subsidy. Because I think the conversation is that the federal government cannot continue to carry these heavy bills that they do when they subsidize certain utility services, such as electricity, generation and distribution, and then also petrol. They've deregulated diesel, which is why we're seeing, and also aviation fuel, which is why we've seen it skyrocket when you have global impact, which is another conversation that comes back down to refinery, because that's where the real issue is. As long as we are import dependent on any services that now prove towards what we need on a daily basis, we are going to be subject to international situations that are going to affect pricing when you have a subsidy issue. So it's a very complex issue. Deregulation is oftentimes the only way you actually move forward. Why? Because if the federal government now removes the subsidy payments that they're doing, just for example, you put about 200 billion a year, and that can go towards capital projects, that can go towards healthcare, that can go towards infrastructure, that can go towards security, that can go towards education, then you now begin to have money available in theory for a better society. But the question now becomes, these things come at a price. Because we're not ready to now begin to refine our own services that we need on a daily basis, is going to have a knock-on effect on inflation. So there are two conversations that need to happen. Conversation number one is, how do we ensure that from a refinery point of view, given that we do have the rawness in crude oil for these particular services, how do we refine and get enough gas, enough diesel, enough petrol to take care of electricity, to take care of transportation and everything else. So that way we are not import dependent when deregulation happens. Deregulation now happens and the market falls where it falls, and then it now becomes a service provider conversation with individuals that offer at different price differentiations, different quality service, value-added services, etc., etc. And then you now free up the federal government to focus on what is meant to focus on, which is providing an enabling environment for Nigerians to thrive on a daily basis, without which this is just going to be another circular conversation we keep having every election cycle. And sorry, Shakra, it's just interesting because it literally happens every election
That's
cycle.
right.
Mm, mm. Cannot stress that enough. But Wadi, I would just quickly wanted to ask, when we bring the social aspect into it, I want to get your take on this. So people, a knee-jerk reaction is, what happens to the people who already can't afford what is
Mhm.
being subsidized,
Mhm.
right? And then we now bring in inflation. What would you say to that?
It's I don't have the answer because it is very, very complicated. Because if you happen to be a major importer of these things, you're not going to cut back on pricing just because you're worried about inflation of the economy. You're not wired that way. So there needs to be a combination of things, in my opinion, that need to happen. I don't even know if I'm right, but a combination of different things need to happen, from the federal government working on a short-term plan to say, okay, fine, let's ease the burden as we now move towards full deregulation. Let's now begin to prepare people for what full deregulation means. And then ultimately, when we get there, in the meantime and interim, we're putting together steps to make sure the refineries are working so we're less import dependent, so that when we fully deregulate, Nigerians are using refined products from Nigeria, so that way they don't have to worry about import dependency, you know, currency exchange fluctuations and volatility and all those different things.
Oh, Adi, you set us up perfectly for our next story, which comes in from this day newspaper. Emefiele defends Naira's exchange rate policy, says country facing peculiar challenges. Fidel, what would you say?
I mean, it's like you said, I think it's a sequel to what this story. Look, I I I would say this over and over again. There is no magic. Let's demystify the reason why the dollar to the naira, the rate is ridiculous. There is no magic. We are not producing anything, right? We keep sending out raw crude. Now maybe probably we'll be sending out gas and expecting to get refined products. The two areas, I mean, the CBN government, I beg your pardon, highlighted two areas where Nigeria makes money from: crude oil and FDI. Now with the insecurity, foreign direct investment is dropping, right? Foreign businesses are divesting, they're moving out. I mean, before now, then we used to know that the big companies, they never really bought property, they just rent it or they lease it. And now that when they're tired or when they feel like okay, it's no longer profitable, we see them leaving, right? So in the area of FDI, it's going down. Now in the area of crude oil, we're we're seeing prices skyrocket in the international market, and it's especially with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. So it's affecting us tremendously. Now, the only way for us to beef up the naira is simple. We need to focus on non-oil exports, and if we are not exporting products, whether it's the cash crops, whether it's finished products, I mean, even if it's not to Europe, even if it's not to Asia, at least to our African counterparts. If we're not exporting, if we don't beef up our non-oil exports, we can. There's nothing the CBN governor can do. And then back then we say, oh, the CBN governor is putting his hands in agriculture. Oh, the CBN governor is putting his hand in minerals and other precious metals. The truth is, if these industries don't work, the naira will continue to flop.
Hey, don't worry. Hope is on the horizon. We can hear from the Cocoa Farmers Association of Nigeria. Will soon become West Africa's highest cocoa producer. But we've got more stories. Let's get to your messages before that, though. Do remember you can leave them up on our YouTube, where we are streaming live on youtube.com/smooth 91 FM Lagos. And stories, I will be reading messages and on WhatsApp as well.
Well,
This one in
it's
from
Benny Benjamin says, when you make stupid policies ranging from governments down to smallest parastatals, it will always affect and downsize the value of your currency. Whoa, stupid policies.
Yes, we've got this one in from Anthony, who says, you analyze these things like we operate a normal system. Even if we depend on locally refined products, our politicians will look for a rationale, says Tony.
I like that.
Whilst Plato says, Isaac from Istola says, it hurts me so badly when they say because Nigeria produces nothing, that's why the Naira is going down. I refuse to believe that China and Japan produce heaven on earth. How much is the exchange rate? Please, you people should wake up. That's not the reason. Thank you. Actually, China is, yeah, when you think China, you think producer.
And Japan.
And Japan.
That's why they're G7.
You think producer. But it's all right. Let's get to the next story.
All right, let's look at this story from the Punch newspaper. Easter advert. Sterling Bank's penalty will serve as deterrent to others. Now, that's credited to APCON. APCON, being the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, has said it is currently reviewing relevant laws with a view of dispensing the stipulated punishment to Sterling Bank over its provocative and sensitive Easter celebration advert.
All right, first and foremost, credit to APCON. Their response was fantastic in reference to the outcry from CAN that the CEO should be sacked for the release of that advert. And I love the way APCON responded, saying that we are going to review this in line with whether or not there were any violations of APCON laws, which is pure and simple and absolutely fantastic. It is non-emotive and it is a very professional response. Credit to them for saying that. Now, on the issue of CAN, you are upset because a bank likened the resurrection of your, what's the word, savior, to agege bread, and that is why you are up in arms. But I always like to ask people of the faith who are in the infrastructure or structure of such associations where your energy was when there were rape allegations and child molestation allegations towards young boys. Where was the outcry then? Where was your energy then when there were other violations that people who happen to be in the Christian faith or the institution of the church now also perpetrated that now got you to this particular point? You are upset because a bank came out with an advert, silly advert I might add, that now said Christ has risen like a gege bread, and you are therefore now calling for the sacking of the MD, primarily because what? He's not a Christian? Primarily because your assumption is that because he comes from a particular part of the country that he did this intentionally to upset Christians. You need to chill out and relax. This is where divisive and deeply, deeply, deeply issuing things come from when you begin to make these statements. And there's absolutely no point for it. APCON have responded as professionally as they can, and people should now remember we are in a democratic society, and freedom of speech is one of the perils of democracy, and you should allow anybody to say what they want to say, whether you like it or not.
And that's all, folks. So if you would like to chill out and relax with our analysts, find them on Twitter. You can find Waji at the corporate MC, spelled with a K, and Fidel at Izotanem, both of them on social media, where we are at Smooth981FM. And we've been streaming live up on youtube.com/Smooth981FM Lagos. Go over there, subscribe to our channel, and watch the replays. That's all coming up. 8:15. It's the locker room.
First Bank.
Oh, sorry.
I thought it was
I
just
did
me.
not. I was just like, wow, my headphones have gotten really, really loud. I don't know what happened.
So someone thought it
Oh,
was Mr. C that was speaking. Says for the first time, I did.
oh, sorry about that,
Adverts
people.
should be totally condemned.
Yeah, because people who
I don't. I don't. I
because
mean,
people who are insecure, people who are insecure in their faith feel that way. You need to get over yourself. It's
Come
not that
on.
serious.
Let's
Yeah,
chill.
immediately when I
stu-
saw it,
It's a
I
stupid
thought it was
advert.
silly.
It's a stupid
Just
advert,
say-
but for
just
God's
say-
sake.
I thought it
anything-
was silly.
It's
but-
silly, fine.
no?
Leave it at
yeah,
that.
it's not a really.
But
big,
anything
big
more
thing.
like
No,
some
we shouldn't-
big
we shouldn't-
attack
yeah.
against your Christendom is
No,
dumb.
It's not like they're
Sorry.
saying kill the president.
There's no point. There's no point.
They're saying that they did it intentionally to attack Christians. I'm like, are you okay? Go.
Yeah, that's
Can
a
we
little
attack?
bit of
Can we
drawing from
attack your
here.
Catholic priests that are over here molesting young boys? What are you saying? Can we attack your Catholic your church that is telling women who are in abusive marriages to stay in their marriage? What are you saying?
There are more serious issues that they should be
You're
addressing.
worried about them talking about like gay bread.
Like looking for the low hanging enemy that you can fight.
Have Cam come out to say that we condemn the abuse that women who are in marriages do that lead to their deaths? Have they come out to say anything? But oh no,
Oh no.
you see, this is why I don't. Religion, me and religion,